Okay, good morning and welcome to the special board meeting for Tuolumne Utilities District, Monday, May 20th, 2024. Let's see, let's have Carolyn lead us in the pledge, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Carolyn. All righty, public forum. We'd like to welcome the members of the public who have taken the time to attend this meeting and provide comments on matters related to district business. Any member of the public may address the board relating to any matter within the board's jurisdiction. This section is for comments on items not listed on the agenda. Persons speaking during the public comment will be limited to 5 minutes, or depending on the number of persons wishing to speak, it may be reduced to allow all members of the public the opportunity to address the board. While no action or discussion may be undertaken by the board on topics presented in this section, board members are listening carefully to these comments and appreciate your input. Seeing no one else in attendance, we'll go ahead and close public forum. Okay, Melissa?
Okay, regular business. Item number 1, continuation of the Tuolumne Utilities District Board of Directors priorities, BHI Management Consulting.
Welcome, Brent.
Welcome, friends. Nice to see you all. Tell me that comes up red. You see that red up there?
Yes.
Good, thank you. And you see it says board priorities. If I can get this thing out of the way. I'll put it over here. And if you can see that, this is my opening slide, just in case somebody shows up. Yeah, I don't get to see it. If you can read that, okay. Then I don't need to make it any larger. But I want to make sure you can see it. That's the smaller one of the group. There's only, this is good news. There's only 11 slides in this deck. Usually when you're strategic planning, there's all sorts of tricks, ideas and thoughts and philosophies. And we laid all that out last time. We talked about the right way and the wrong way to do things. And one of the right ways to do things, and remember it was just the board and I. And so I laid it on the board and they laid it on me what they really want to get done. And I try to take notes and they're over there. Those are from, for your edification, those are from the individual board members' interviews that I did with you guys. And so we looked those over and then we said, yeah, that covers it. That's what we should talk about. That's what we should, we're not necessarily committed to strategy yet, but let's talk about those things. And so they're still there. But what I went away and did is I looked at, did that go up? No. I looked at with the intention for the second session to be clarity, efficiency, and direction. Direction's really important. We don't want to leave this room with any ambiguity today. So if there's a difference of opinion on how we should move forward in one of these major areas, then let's talk about it now. Come prepared, and let's make sure staff has all due clarity to go out there and make it work for you. But sometimes that even gets down to the point that you need to say, this is how we think it ought to be done. And somebody might say, no, this is how it should be done. And you just need to talk about it because that just leaving it there doesn't give him and them and her and him clarity. And absence of clarity costs money. It's just inefficient. And Don, I checked, he doesn't have a crystal ball in his office. So this is the board, the 5 speaking as one. This is the time to say, okay, we kind of have some differing opinions on things, kind of have some questions about how we do things. Let's get them out. Let's talk them over with staff. Let's try to get them clear so that the next time we come back, which will be kind of another, I'll go into what it'll look like next time we come back. We'll say, okay, yeah, that looks like it gets us to where we want to go, or at least where we've agreed to go. Okay, so when I look back in your past, so we'll review your priority sessions from the past. And this is an important point because you've had several priority sessions in the last 3 or 4 years. From the 2020 to 2021 to a report in September 23 to the GM evaluation in January of 24 to our meeting when we made that to today. So you guys are really good at getting out there and looking ahead. What you want to be clear about is, okay, by virtue of all of that, what do we really want to say? What do we really want to achieve between now and 5 years from now? And it could be that staff's dead nuts on, not a good expression anymore, that the staff is dead on the direction we want them to go. You collectively as a board, at least 3 of you. It could be that they're just off here in the left vector a little bit. We need to say, no, let's talk about it. Why are you off there? Let's talk about it. Let's get it back. Or let help us understand that that's the better way for us to go. But that discussion can't go on with out clarity of discussion. Let me go back up. I think I had one more there I wanted to do. So what do you want to say about the 2024 strategic priorities? And those are yes, Rob?
Well, I think you're just about ready to cover what my thought was.
You're always out in front of me, Rob.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody had gotten this. I wanted to compliment you on having put this together. But everybody here at the table should have this, I think. And then
Don helped a lot.
I'm sure, I can tell by how long it is.
Well, look, but I want you to know, you're all gonna get a copy of this, and so we're gonna.
Sure you turn your microphone on when you're
Oh,
talking.
you want to say it over? Say it over. Thank you, Brent, for doing such a good job. That's right.
Thank you, Brent, for doing such a great job.
I love it when he says that. Okay, so I didn't do this, quite frankly. This is something that you all did. All I did was put a header on it and put a little bit of a thing on the top of it. But the point of it is it's the latest time that you guys got together and looked in the future. And it speaks to the priorities you had just a few months ago. Interestingly enough, it speaks pretty closely to what you said at the end of 2023 at a report that you all did on the strategic plan. And even more interesting is it's pretty close to what you talked about with Stantec back in 2021. And it's not too far from the 2020 strategic plan. It's not way off. So that to me says these are still credible. Credible enough for us to say, do these cover what we want? Now, this 2 pages is not the idea. You don't make a strategic plan with 2 pages. A strategic plan, there are 4 or 5 strategically important areas in here. And the other stuff in here all hang from those. Like, for instance, let's just, PG&E is a kind of a common, understood, easy to say term. And we all kind of agree or dance around that one a little bit. But PG&E, you all pretty much have said, sure, but let's make sure we know what we're getting into. But it is not the strategic goal. What's the strategic goal of PG&E?
Securing our water rights, my opinion.
So is water rights your strategic goal? Water security your strategic goal? You see, if you can ask why about it and you get to the end, that's you're articulating your strategic goal. Strategic goal that plans everything. What do you got there, Don?
I was gonna help along. Number 1, enhance and improve water security, which PG is just one component of that.
So enhance
And improve water security.
water security. So that's your strategic goal. You exist here today as one of your strategic goals to enhance and improve
water
water,
security.
wall, security. PG&E is one of those things. It's hard to believe, but it's a sub-bullet. Are there other sub-bullets in here that belong under that same heading? There are. There are. To the degree that the words we put to describe that in, and I read these words to you last time, just still an example. Continue to engage PG&E to be prepared when negotiations resume, execute purchase and sale agreement when the PG&E owned portions of our water system including the entire Phoenix project, Pinecrest Lake, and senior water rights. And pretty much everybody said, yep, I'm for that. So we've already got the language there. If we put that in as a strategic goal that serves the strategic priority that Don read, then we've got one thing there and we've described it. That's clear to everyone. Go forth and make it happen. Maybe some others won't be quite as clear. There may be some other language that somebody else would like to propose in here to refine it too. And so we're gonna have the opportunity in this time, maybe not this today, but we're gonna have time to look at each one of those and get them right collectively. And at times, I can tell you, it'll get down to a board vote. Somebody will say, no, I can't go with it if it says that. And somebody else says, well, I can't go with it if it says that. But three, you say, well, I can go with it the way it is. So what does Don do? Don needs a vote. Votes are tough, but votes are thorough. Votes tell the story. That's why there are 5 of them. All those in favor of adopting that language for PG&E, say aye. All those opposed, say no. Now she can put in the minutes. Now it's an action, a clear, it's not an action, maybe. It's a clear direction. It has to be noticed as an action. There's nothing today that's noticed as an action. It's only a direction. You can provide direction to staff. Is everybody with me? I thought about this for 2 hours, the last 2 hours in the last 2 days, but the last 2 hours were compressed driving, nothing else to think about but quality utilities. So we're basing it a lot because this thing covers so many of those. So here's the list of planning activities that you've had. And when I looked at each one of them, I compared them. I drew little lines. And I said, you know, you guys are being pretty clear here. You're just not being clear about what you're being clear about. You see what I'm getting at? You know what you want, but you're not exactly, and not in here, not until maybe in the, well, back as far as the Stan Tech thing, probably didn't have that CIP specific rate. We're definitely gonna, it wasn't that, it was a high priority, it just didn't know how to do it at the time. So from the Stan Tech on, everything else has CIP in it. But there's some question there too in CIP. It's not all slam dunk. There are choice points in CIP. There are choice points in R&R. Well, R&R not so much, but there are choice points in how we deal with it. And that's something we all need to talk about too when we get there. All right. So the last session over here on the paper, this is what the last session said. CIP, PG&E, Regional Water Treatment Facility, flumes and ditches, Chicken Ranch Water, team internal communications. Yeah, I don't know if Chicken Ranch Water belongs under the same heading, the same one that Don read as maybe PG&E does.
It does.
It does.
Not worded
So it's B.
properly, but it's.
Well, no, it's not. But wording is easy. We just want to make sure we capture it in the right outline section. And read that again, that one header.
It's goal number 1, enhance and improve water security.
And so Chicken Ranch Water would do that.
A Central Valley Project water contract would do that. And we're partnering with Chicken Ranch.
So there's
to
a
do that.
better name for it.
Yes.
But for a placeholder, that one goes up. So that one's not even on, it's on there, but it's in another place. We're organizing it now. Very good. Okay. How about regional water treatment facility? Is that the one you're snipping the ribbon on?
That's a wastewater
That's the waste
facility.
one. Yeah. Don and I went round and round. He tried so hard to talk me. He said, no, there's a wastewater treatment plant and then there's a water treatment plant. In fact, there's two, are there two of those? Is that right? Two treatment plants?
There's a bunch of them.
Yeah, there's
Oh,
12.
they're the little sub-regional ones, is that right?
This is to take care of, so we can eliminate a lot of those.
So,
And the whole idea is to regionalize that. I see.
Sorry, Don, I jumped in on you.
no, you did good.
The more y'all know, the better off y'all are. If it's all the truth, if it's all real. The more y'all make it up, the worse off you are. And let me tell you, I walk into a lot of situations where did left field, what? That random comment comes from someone you say, but that's not even, okay. You guys are there. That's the thing about you guys. You're really already there. There's some polishing you're doing on the last 5% of this thing. Okay. Internal communications is an interesting one. And I think that's aimed just where it's supposed to say. It says internal. And that means there's probably some things we could do better to once we get on track together, to stay on track together. There's also some things we can do there to make sure that we take care of, and I think I went through this with everybody, but I'm gonna go through it with you too. Remember, I think I've done 3 of these since I left you guys last. But so I'm just gonna be being redundant here. But it's really important to understand the 4 asset classes. TUD, like every other utility, has 4 asset classes. It is called dollars, facilities, equipment, and people. Your workforce. There's another one that's a little more ambiguous, and it's out here. It's called relations. Not really an asset. It's a howie, it's a value. But it's a value that affects a lot of this, especially if you're after dollars that are not only yours. Like grants, things like that. So you, board, have been given this district and all that is within it by the voters to do the best work you can down here. And they say, we're gonna give you money that'll buy facilities and hire people and buy equipment, I mean, over the years. And then make the highest use of those. In order to do that, board, we're going to allow you to hire an expert. That's your expert. He works for you. You have his contract. You tell him in the performance evaluation, make the highest and best use of every bit of these. And sometimes when you get a kind of a comment like internal communications, it's a lot down here. But it's a lot about communication across the whole too, and some about up here. So is that clear? Are there any questions on that? I just like to simplify things if I can. Must be pretty simple. I like, oh, Ron, good, thank you.
So I understand everything that you're saying and agree to it, but there's one facet that's being left out,
Okay,
in my opinion. So I got it that the board's supposed to provide the vision and so on to the general manager. The general manager then hires people and hopefully gets the vision taken care of. But how does the board relate with the staff and with the people? I
you
mean,
should ask. I have a little. Let me draw another little sketch. Sketch of an hourglass. For a focal point. However you would look at it. Again, my attempt over the years to simplify this. There are all sorts of people out here. This, I'm trying to draw for you what I see the people out there as all different shapes and sizes. And opinions and so forth. This is the public. Somehow, the public is able to pick 5. That's you. The public picks you. You represent their values in the decisions that you make here. You all hire the general manager. And you commit, not quite in your, when you stand up and take the oath, but you commit to the organizational chart to communicate with the general manager. The general manager has, working with him, within his purview to make it all happen, has this asset class. This asset class is down here. And there's this person, and there's that person, and they have those people that report to those people, and it goes on and on and on, and there's people, and sometimes there's some people out here, and they go down, you get the idea. That's the staff. So there's staff, there's GM, there's board, and there's the constituency or the ratepayers. Customers. Call them what the community, call them what you want. They're the people, they own all this. Or let's use it. This should work this way. Now, that being said, unless it's under very controlled and well-planned and agreed circumstances, should these people be talking to those people about work. That is the only time that's really agreed and allowed generally is because it's an organized bargaining unit that wants to talk to the directors. In almost no cases is it appropriate for these people to go down here and talk to them. Not about just their new barbecue, not about their new pickup, about work. Because if you do, it messes up this whole little chart. This is the hard thing to get in. It was a hard thing to get in my head. These people don't work for me. They work for him. He's the one that's tasked with making the highest, best use out of this people asset and evaluating their performance and being accountable for their performance. If we go around in the most innocent of sense and just stand in Abby's office and just shoot the breeze with her for a while. Maybe not Abby, he's not a good example, but somebody else, a new person at the district. All manner of suggestion can be made, even though it was never intended. You go down here to one of the operators and you're talking to them, first of all, they feel pretty puffed up about getting to talk to one of the board members. Well, the board members is here, that kind of word gets out. I know you're trying, I know you want to be humble about who you are, but the fact is, it's a big deal. How many elected officials are there in the whole of Sonora? 30 maybe? Yeah. And you're one, and you're five. Well, it's 31. You know, you're 5 of them. And so it's a pretty big deal to be able to talk to an elected official. And even for your employees that see you a lot, all I'm saying is if you say to, look, if you say to Melissa, you're not still using that old Dell, are you? Maybe you guys did a big, or you talk to him, you come alongside after lunch and say, we seem to be some good stuff here. This is junk, this is old. You see what happened? You see what just happened? Don't worry, I'll take it. You can't. You have no unilateral authority. And this is a really interesting point, and I know Barbara's heard it 15 times from me if she's heard it once. And I know not all of you have, but you have no unilateral authority. You have no access to staff unless granted through the general manager. It's easy. You call the general manager, you say, hey, I'd like to talk to somebody about the tank. That tank problem we're having. I don't know if you have a problem, tank problem, but I'd like to see it. Can I see it? He would say, sure, you can see it. I'll call somebody, they'll call you, we'll get in touch, you go on up. During that conversation, during that truck ride, that doesn't mean you can talk about, so how's it going? How's your supervisor? Everything going good here? What's it really like around here? You're not prepared to do a unilateral workplace assessment and then bring it in here. And I'm not looking at just you, it happens, trust me. It's not just you guys, or not you guys at all, but I know. But that's how it works. It's supposed to work within this. Now, I'd love to get questions on this one because not everybody gets it that believes that. Not everybody believes that. But let me try to. Ron?
Okay, now, excuse me, turn it around. No, turn it around. So the board meets, we have agenda items.
Yes,
Those are put on the, put is the way it usually works from what I understand.
okay, before we go beyond that, how do things get on the agenda? Do you work on that with,
I do, yeah.
so you propose something, he reviews it?
There's
Or the other way around.
routine
Yeah.
There's
items,
routine.
there's routine items that are on
Routine items.
monthly agendas.
Okay, sorry, Ron, we'll get back.
And then there are the board president might have some items of
Okay.
interest,
Some left over from previous meetings?
perhaps. Engineering might propose a new project, take on a consultant, take on a contractor.
Cause you expressed a little bit of not sure how things get put on the agenda. You probably know. But let's just not leave that one dangling, okay?
No, I'm glad, this is why I wanted staff involved, because if we all understand what each of us is supposed to be doing, we're just gonna be able to do a lot better job, and we'll be able to help each other out in order to get there.
And the reason I stopped you with the agenda, getting things on the agenda, is it's a commonly shared issue out there with boards, is thinking that I only react to the agenda. I never get to proact with the agenda. But that's usually not true if you look through the way that things are put together. That there's usually a time at the end of the meeting where you can stand up for items from the directors where they can say, I'd love to have this looked at in the next agenda or at the agenda soon in the future. And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes it's all over the place. There's no real common thread here. Sometimes it takes another, just a second. Sometimes it takes a vote to get it on the next agenda. Sometimes there's never any discussion like that. So it goes all over the board. He's the only one that does the agenda. Here, how does it work? Is it written? Is it clear to everyone? Barbara?
It really does vary between, it's the the culture and the chemistry between the board and the general manager and the board president. And I've seen it where we had one board president, just absolutely take that agenda and really try to control it.
Mhm.
I've seen it as a game of keep away, where it's been impossible for certain board members to get anything on the agenda. And that was a long time ago. And I see, it's the same with the access to staff with a request for a field trip to look at something. Thank you. We happen to have a general manager now who is not so hung up about access to you or staff. We have a question, so we have sort of an unwritten or unspoken thing that if you really have something burning, you don't necessarily go through you. Like Ron can just call Eric right off, but that was not always the case with other, it was really strict.
Yeah, there really is a cultural norms, but the problem with cultural norms is they waft. And when you're on the uptake of the waft, you're not in by the time it wafts back, you might have never been able to impact it because you never fully understood it. And so what's the best thing for us to do here with that issue? And it may be written. Here's how things are put on the agenda. Here's how the agenda is constructed. Here's the process. Here's how we report on future agenda items. I like the clarity of that. Go ahead.
It is written. It is in our board policy manual. It's spelled out that way.
So we need to.
We haven't, so long as I've been on the board, president or not, we've pretty much follow it, but it's leaked one way or the other at different times.
Sure, and they do, and it depends on that culture.
Yeah.
If everybody's collegial and things are working okay and everybody's kind of getting their stuff done, then it's usually fine. It's when one thing turns bad.
Yeah.
And then bang, you find yourself over here saying, where is that? I thought we had a policy for that. So my recommendation, anytime we find enough ambiguity, let's just talk about it and get it through. If we have policy, let's dust it off and just take a quick look at it. Make sure he's a reasonably new general manager. Some of you are reasonably new board members. It's reasonable to look at that because it's an important item for a board member to be able to tee up and discuss with his or her fellow board members an issue. Ron, that gets me all the way back to where you started. I'm sorry. I hope you remember what you were going to say.
Well, I'm glad that you got off on that because this helps, shed light on exactly the way things should work. So getting back to agenda items then, or going further with that, I think that the board can't do their job properly unless the agenda item is very succinct. Exactly what it is that staff is looking to accomplish, and that it's presented to the board in a way in enough detail that there's nothing left out and that we can make a proper decision that's going to allow the utility to move forward in a good manner, a proper manner. And I think that takes, I think it takes trust on the board's part that the agenda item is got all the information in it that's necessary in order to make that decision, and that staff has put that information in there knowing that the board's going to need to have that information in order to make a proper decision. I hope that makes sense.
No, it does. Another big issue out there is that process and what do I get out of agenda items? Did I see a hand over here? Yeah.
Director Ringen, are you in reference to agenda items that cause collateral changes other than what was stated in the agenda item? Is that
Indirect.
kind of?
I'm not quite sure that I follow exactly what you mean.
Okay, that, former finance director, was usually pretty good about calling out the board as to what was a board approved item when a board member would have a question, how or when did that happen? And then get slapped with, well, the board approved that kind of thing.
Yeah, having been on the board as many years as I have, I've seen a bunch of that sort of stuff, and that's what I think is one of the aggravating things is well, you voted for that. Well, number one, at what point in time and what was the circumstances? Who was the general manager at the time? How was it presented to the board? There's something that came up at the last board meeting about whether or not there was a 5-0 on a certain subject. I was on the board at that time, and I'll guarantee you it was a 5-0 vote, but my vote, which was, I really did not want to vote yes, but it was presented to us in such a way that we just had to do this. This was life and death almost. We had to do it. So the board everybody went for it, but in retrospect, there's no way in hell we should have ever voted for that. So that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We need the proper information in order to make the proper decision. And if we don't get it, then the proper decision isn't going to be made. And I don't want to hear, well, you voted for it. Well, maybe I did, but you didn't give me the information I needed in order to make the right decision.
Yes.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah,
And
no,
answers your
I'm
question.
following along with you, quite well. And that, leads back to, communication. That one's a hard one to the diagram there. I almost feel like it locks the hands of a board member, especially if they feel that there's conflict with the general manager. You're blocked from communication with other staff members.
Right, another one of the big five. You nailed it. And if you are frustrated with your board member, with your general manager, then you need to take it up with your general manager individually. If you're still upset with your general manager, then two of you need to go agree, evidently, need to go take it up with your general manager. If there's still no change, then you call for a performance review in closed session. And the five of you take it up with your general manager. If he still doesn't listen, then you develop a performance improvement plan for your general manager. If he still doesn't listen, then you begin steps to dismiss him. Sorry. This is how this is how it works. It's not a flash in the pan, but the right place to go for information is not necessarily down here. Now, it may be the reason. There may be a reason here. Sometimes in this difficulty between these two stages here, you might need to find out what they think. But it's not good for one of you or even all of you to think you're going to go down to the shop and find out what these people think, or individually or as a group.
The simple solution to this, in my opinion, and has been for years, is that group of people up there on top, the ratepayers. If those five right below and the multitude at the bottom and the general manager in the middle realize and make those at the top, the ratepayers, be the number one reason that we're all here and that they're the ones that we're serving, then we're not going to have a problem because everybody will be trying to do what's best for them, not what's best for whatever else.
If everybody within this structure can believe that about everyone in the structure. You know what I mean? If all the staff says, I'm not so sure this is the best way to go, but I know that our management and our manager
And I take it the board knows we're going this direction, I trust them to be making the right decisions. Or if you all say, what are they out doing that for? Okay, look, I know this enough about our people, that if they're out doing this, I know that it's under control, it's being done for a reason. That takes an amount, think of the variables in this equation in terms of relationships. And so, yeah, we're all doing it for them. All this team here is doing it for them. But not just for them too, but these over here. And the next generation, and the next generation. That's what water districts need to do, right? It's a generational thing. Your children, your children's children, their children. And so, in some sense, some of your strategic priorities are aiming out up in the future. Sustained water supply. Okay, that being said, in terms of organizational health, this thing stays together if there's trust in it. Trust is the thing that makes it work. Trust is not easy, trust is not automatic. Trust is something that distrust can come in just, you can hire distrust. It's out there, it's available. They're the ones that usually apply for every job. It's there. You don't want to do that. No, you want to have a distrustful nature filter. Okay, but as you say, how do we know what they think? If we think we've got an issue with them, how do we know what they think? It's unfortunate, but the right way to do that is for somebody else to ask. Not you guys. But ask for you. Somebody comes and does a survey with these people and say, there are a few issues. To you, you're fine. But not for you individually, because you might hit somebody on a bad day. Performance review day. Just got told I'm not doing the things I know I'm doing right. I got told I wasn't doing it just right. Or just a bad day, not feeling it. I'm not the right person to ask, but I'll tell you anyway. Ooh, ever heard that one? Yeah. Go ahead, Barbara.
I wanted to comment on trust, and it gets back to Director Boatwright and Director Ringen. And I want to ask the staff a question, but I'll get to it. So I think you hit a really important point about trust, because you guys have all sat in meetings where the board has talked out loud about a decision that it regrets because if it only had the right information, it may have voted differently. Okay, and it's very, I feel, awkward for staff because sometimes you feel like you did give them the information. And what I'm going to ask staff is, in the past, have you ever had subtle hints or pressure from a past GM that wanted the agenda to be phrased a certain way and certain information maybe not included, or a certain recommendation not included? Because I want to understand your role in all this, because sometimes when I get an agenda, I think the board can be suspicious. For an example, I'm not picking on Antonio, but the LAFCO thing, when I went, well, wait a minute, one of the 3 tenets of LAFCO is to protect ag land. How come that's not in your PowerPoint? But what that does to me is like, what's going on here? Was that deliberate? Was that accidental? Because I really do trust Antonio. But all the little things, Valley Vista is another example. And that lift station is another example there, and our treated effluent system. The board can't help but wonder, is information not being put in the agenda for us to make a decision, not because you don't want to, but because you intuitively know who you work for, and it's not the board. So I'm asking staff, has that happened in the past, subtly or otherwise?
I think honestly, that thing could have happened and could have been the reason why we're having this discussion, potentially. And let's just say it's not this staff, because you've got the staff you've got. Looking forward, but maybe instead of a question, it's a thou shall therefore never do that again. Because, and it's hard to check everybody's boxes every time you're generating a staff report. And in fact, they shouldn't sit in the staff room over there and say, well, who's gonna vote for this? Who's gonna vote for that? Who's gonna be pissed off when I put that? I'm sorry, forget my language. Who's gonna be mad when we put this one together? Who's gonna be upset?
You don't think people do that? Don't do that?
They may do that, and I don't want them to do that. It's not right to do that. It's better to give you a clinical, professional viewpoint. If you can trust them to give you the clinical, professional, best professional advice in this situation for this district, based on the best thing for those people, if you can trust that with them, then you don't have to worry about it. Now, the way the agenda is constructed is important. And this gets to yours as well. And it gets kind of to your work, you guys' work. Is agenda construct can be very helpful. Can be very helpful for a board member. It can also be very difficult for a board member. One outcome you want after a board member sits and looks at an agenda item is not, for sure, suspicion. Right? That's a worst case. To think that, oh, they just want that, so I can see that, and see, staff is not, staff should be much more clinical, much more professional based, much more what's good for the whole. And then prepare the staff report to do a few things. And one is to prepare an intro, do a background analysis, tell the story of how we got here, do professional options. There are some options in this. There's 1, there's 2, or A, there's B, there's C. And the impacts of each of those options, the impacts of this one is this, the impact of that. And look, you're it's a trust thing. You've outlined that well. And then lastly, and this is one that often gets to some boards, is they ought to give you their best professional recommendation. You don't have to take it. I can't tell you how many times I sat up at the dais and they said, oh, you really need to take option A. And it just didn't match the values of our community because they were looking at it from a professional standpoint. Yeah, we probably could have got a little more with this A, but B is where we know the people are. So we took B. I don't know if that's helping much, but I don't want to overstate this, but there's a little on all of us here to get that part right. You can't come preloaded with suspicion. You can't come preloaded with ideas that you don't want to really talk about that may have a lingering effect or somewhere down the line. You know, being frank and honest and letting people know that if you make this decision, it's going to have some other, I mean, the other analysis, the other background, it's going to have a lingering effect. Could change this, could change that. That's all important. That's all reasonable. Because you, as Ron points out, you don't want to make a decision and then 3 years later say, well, I voted for that. How did that come up? Did I miss it? Maybe I missed it. That would be the humble way. You say, I must have missed that in the original staff report. I'm sure I was told that could happen. I don't know. But see, this is kind of bringing up all the boats rise together, right? When the water comes up. So it's based on honesty and trust. Go ahead.
The only other thing that comes to my mind on this too is I know in my past, my professional past, I have to be very careful about looking back because, you know, and I'm not being specific to what you were commenting, but just as a general feeling looking back, because you make the best decision with the information you have, and sure. Couple years later, looking back on it with that 3 extra years or 2 extra years, and you look back and say, yeah, we shouldn't have done that. We should have gone the other way. But if you don't have that knowledge that came after, there's no way you could have made that decision any different. I don't know if I'm making sense here.
Right.
But my point is if somebody's, if there's staff or board members or a president or a general manager that is willfully withholding information, that's one thing. But if you can't get hung up on, oh, I should have voted differently, knowing what I know now as opposed to what I know then, because that's a dangerous dog chasing his tail situation there. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you, Ron.
So I hear what you're saying and I totally agree. But I think to cut to the chase on this thing, we are very, very lucky to have a honest, hardworking GM that we have now. We have not had that in a while. And the circumstance that I'm talking about, and I don't want to get into specifics because I don't think it would do any good at this point anyways, but when you look back after the vote and you start asking questions and you start looking around, and you find out that every staff member said, no, don't do that. But that doesn't get related to you by the general manager or the staff involved in trying to push it. I think I have every right to be really, really upset over it. I don't ever want that to happen again.
Well, and I think.
And the board dealt with that. I mean, the board dealt with that. Right?
No,
We surely did. That general manager is no longer here.
well, that part, but we're
Yeah.
stuck with the decision.
But I mean, my point is, the board did what it felt it had to do and corrected that problem.
But it should have never occurred, is what I'm saying.
True.
Yeah. But the process worked, I guess is what I'm saying. I mean, it got to that point where you mentioned earlier, Brent, where the trust wasn't there between the board and the general manager. And now we got a new general manager. Barbara?
Trust just doesn't come out of a can. It happens in committee meetings, it happens at Aqua, it happens at being able to interact in a professional way. And it happens in ways to make sure that what you just read off, that the board, that the staff is protected to give from their own boss, to give every alternative and their reasons why. In unbiased as possible language. We did this, a really good example was when we picked for another water treatment plant lower down. That I trusted staff going through that process with their eyes open and not being slightly directed a certain way by their supervisor. I just think that I want to protect staff here as well, so that it doesn't just keep bubbling up, these bad decisions, and kind of rehashing it again. And so I really want the staff to have, and I think under Don's supervision, it's possible to have staff have the freedom to go, okay, A, B, C alternatives, and not be influenced to sort of direct everybody.
Well, yeah, and there are going to be instances where they say, we're making the case for option A because it's clearly the best engineering option for what we've got coming. I know it's the hard path, but we're gonna recommend it. But that's all it is, a recommendation. Staff reports are only recommendations. You three of you make the decision. But making a decision based on the more information, the more you can trust all the information that's getting out there, the better chance they have of getting the right decisions by informing you, by bringing your knowledge level up during staff reports or calls or tours or whatever it might be. So you guys have good feedstock here for trust. I think it's better than what because you've got some history, you've got some scars. That's okay. Because of those, you can see, hey, we don't want to ever get there again. So you've got a GM you trust, and he wants to do everything right. He's reasonable. How long have you been?
Just 24 years.
GM?
No, 2 years,
Two
a little
years.
over 2 years. I
Yeah,
think.
but it's different at the focal point. A little different, right? You got these people deal with.
It's different.
But the point is, a lot of people.
In a good way.
A lot of people depending on you. Staff should never have to worry about telling you all the unvarnished truth. May not be option A, may not be option B, but we really believe that it should be option C because unvarnished truth about A and B is, it's just not a good decision. Now, you might love A and B. But that's all right. You guys can work that out. Because their job is to make it happen for the people and you represent the people. So those things are all fun while we're running and all fun when we're studying together and everybody says, oh yeah, I see where I fit and everything. But it's during the putting together staff reports, putting together agendas, running the meetings so that everyone gets a chance to talk, and respecting one another's opinion, and being able to go from that horribly acrimonious item number 4 to item number 5 and be fine. Shake the etch and sketch, it's clear. And that's what good boards can do. There's no remnant there. Because when you first get to put together as a board, you're gonna make about 250 decisions. So the first one can't mess all the rest of them up, nor can the 25th one mess all the rest of them up. So this trust relationship, if there's something more you collectively can say you need from Don in terms of the agenda, in terms of your briefings, in terms of, more detailed staff reports or whatever it might be, or less detailed staff reports, you just need to, as a board, let them know. And Don and your staff, you've got to come in saying, we just got to give them the information. Give them as much information for them to make a decision. Because you've got differing perspectives on here. But you don't play to perspectives, you play to what's the right thing to do and you leave it with them. Okay. Enough on that, because we're back now to strategic objectives. Where we left off is that list that's up there still, I think. And there was some, this is going to, I'm doing it. No, I don't want to stop it here. So there are the high level priorities, the long game water security. These are what popped out from me now, after your significant capital improvement. Organizational stability, that's a big word. Organizational stability. Over 5 years, no pressure, Don. Nobody can leave. You'll improve the legislation. They're all gonna work hard. Sustainable. Does that say sustainability? Is it spelled wrong? Sustainability, sustained. Good reputation in the community. I came out of there. Interesting question. Yeah. Excuse me, labor management advancements. Evidently, there's a contract coming up here that are visible in your future.
26.
Advancements, that's a really great wash and clean word. Advancements or negotiations. Top-notch administrative, legal support, performance, and stability. Now, it doesn't stop there. Because in 2021, you came up with this means by which to look at priorities. Mission critical, high, or important. Note there on those lists that there are a lot of things that you recognize. That was 2021. There's PG&E, Phoenix Lake, water needs assessments done, right, Don? There's USBR. Those things were like mission critical. So he was going to work on those really hard, and probably has. Sierra Pines water treatment, Phoenix Lake restoration, and ongoing tribal partnerships is a high priority. Just in these terms. An important priority is the ditch system, new Sonoma water treatment consolidation, solar power infrastructure and sustainability initiatives. And then there's some other strategic priorities that are down here in the box. I don't know if that means they're in the dugout, or they just haven't gotten that yet, or what the others are. They may not have been within the 5 years, maybe those are others. But this is not a comprehensive list. In all reality, we've had newer stuff. Okay. But I want to know if you like that critical high and important rating system. Do you like that, or or are you happy just to give each supportive? Let's look at it this way. If, again, just using PG&E as one, presuming it's going to be up there somewhere. No, what is it? What was the overall water security? Water security. 1.0. 2.0 was chicken. I'm new to Chicken Ranch. I know it's. So in the section that says water security, the one thing that I do differently for my strategic plans is I'll put a date out here. Now, you can't always call it. Maybe you can there.
Nope.
I don't know. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. But as you go down through it, it will be constructed this way where this is 1.0, this is 1.1, 1.2. I'm sorry, forgive me for messing up here today. So this is 1.0 water security. 2.0 would be another one. The question is, do you need them prioritized in this critical, high, important, or do you just want to prioritize them by their dates, completion dates? Because you know this is what's on the other side of this. I think what you would write out here is ASAP. Now there's a lot of question marks over that. I realize that it's not. We don't know yet what that might bring. Yes.
As you're making a list and trying to figure out priorities,
Well, I'm not gonna, that's just an example.
well, no, I mean, we're kind of looking at, how do we set priorities as to, hey, I want PG&E accomplished by, this date, or Chicken Ranch or whatnot. I don't think we can actually apply that in that fashion because, like PG&E is at a mile marker and it will advance to the next mile marker in its own time.
When it chooses.
Hey, as it becomes a, generational, priority for the district. And Chicken Ranch, referring to the water, Central Valley, water contract, that's at a mile marker and it will advance,
Same thing,
at
yeah.
a different pace than the
Yeah.
other.
So those aren't good examples.
So, well, it's not that they're not good examples. It's just maybe this category need to kind of focus on it. Yes, we want to advance all of these items, but they're each gonna, move at their own evolution.
Right.
They're not gonna be, oh, I can do this and then, gets to this point. Or, a general manager or staff cannot just remain focused in PG&E until it's completed and then pick up the next item on the list.
Of course not.
Everything is moving, at its own evolution.
My suspicion is there are 5 or 6 or 7 items that we go down here that we work on until, unless this one pops up its head, it really begins to shift a little bit. Here are the ones that I had worked on a little bit and wanted you to be able to see. I couldn't put them on what slide. But
I got it.
you have.
Yeah.
You know, you already did. So The point is though, what I'm trying to get at now is, do you like a rating scale? Do you like, or a date priority scale? To help you prioritize? Yes, Ron?
So that's what I really liked about this as a beginning point, let me put it that way.
Yeah.
And this is why I was really adamant about having staff get involved with this in this planning situation, because that's the team. I mean, without the team, we're not gonna get anything accomplished. And so I can tell this is got Don's fingerprints all over it.
This was from his evaluation.
Okay, good. So each and every one of these is important. There's not one of them on here that's not important.
Fair enough.
But that's where I think that between Don and staff, they need to tell us and themselves which ones of these are most important to get accomplished for that group that's at the top.
And that's very true. And if we were to just go from here and say, yes, we like this list, and I had to see if that was indeed going to be true, if it was comprehensive enough. Then we would go forth and do that and bring it back to you. That's exactly what we do, Ron. The one thing I want to make sure of is that there's, and may not be dealt with on the list, are 2 points. And I want to make sure we have a discussion while we're here. Because let me just say, we take this list, Brett, you and Don, all your good staff, go and take this list and organize it and put dates or priorities or put that sentiment that the board has on this and bring it back to us. So it'll kind of be ordered in a slightly different way. If you guys were to say that, that would be great. We can do that and however you want to organize it. But there's some words in here. I don't want to have to go away and do that unless we get a chance to talk about a couple of things here. And one of them is kind of put together in a few different things. There's this one. And Barbara, I'm talking to you now. And this one. And this one. We need to hear clearly from you, Barbara, what you hope to see in the strategic plan that would answer that. And you bring your passion to the fore, and you say, if I could get this and this and this in this 5-year strategic plan, then I'd know we'd be making progress. But others have to agree. That's one of the 2 things I want. One.
It gets to what Director Boatwright was also saying is these kind of represent buckets of opportunity for a couple of reasons. One, opportunity, there's money, for an example, connecting youth to their water, there's a bucket of money. It's all in Wade Crowfoot's Natural Resources Department. But the second thing it does is that it prepares TUD to bite off some low-hanging fruit regarding recreation, building community goodwill, and preparing us as a district to understand that recreation has a potential revenue for us. And I think that's a point that we only have 2 revenue streams right now, and you've heard me say this a dozen times, and we need hydro. You know, this includes our water rights, and with hydro, water, sewer, and recreation. And the districts around us, this is getting towards sustainability, but it also builds community goodwill. That's a really great byproduct as well. So, so the opportunity to partner with the county on certain projects, partner with the community, since ditch access trails involve property owners. That's where I don't want to just limit us to letting a whole lot of grants go by because it's not that one we want to buy that piece of ground at PG&E, I mean, at Phoenix. I want us to do a few other, I would like us to do a few other visible, low-hanging fruit so that when we need the community support for PG&E, I think it's an easier pill to swallow. We don't know when we're going to get back on track, but hopefully soon. But in the meantime, because PG&E has a huge recreational component in their FERC relicensing, I don't, you know, this building is prepared for the future. I just don't know that TUD is with the, and so that's where and their relationship with the community needs to shift in this direction. So that's how it is tied to PG&E. These are maybe soft goals, but I think they're really critical when we need support. And I know the tribes are really suspicious of this. You build relationships before anything goes wrong, because something could go wrong and you've got that solid relationship, you're in it together. And so that's the goal here, is to build public visibility, public trust through the recreational opportunities, including the Phoenix Lake, but not limited to that, because there's so many other opportunities to partner with our schools and Blue Zone and SBI, et cetera. So that it's, are we ready? Just assume this for relicensing or for PG&E and the recreational aspects of Pinecrest, let's say, if they were thrown in? I don't think so. But if we bought into PG&E, TUD stands for partnering in quality of life for the people that live here, and we're able to afford or make the water available with community involvement, I can't see where we would go. I can't imagine a community person going, no, you're wasting ratepayer money, especially if we are leveraging money from grants. But so anyway, that's my piece on that. And that's how it's tied in, and probably not that as clear as you could ask for, but.
So let me just ask a follow-up question. In 5 years, you want us to improve the relationships with the tribes, right? Is that what I'm, if I squeeze the lemon, what do I get out of it? You want to improve relationships with the communities, our ratepayers communities, and here's a method to do that. To get them involved in the protection of the ditches.
Get them involved in their water resources, where their water comes from.
And
Our tribe is good. Our tribe is actually, our tribal relations is really good. We have board members and we have public members, we have Dawn, and we're all, that is ongoing.
Keep that going,
Yeah, and you can't let your guard down on that. That's not the right words, but you can't just think you've arrived.
But is there something else that in the next 5 years didn't get done? You say we're not making any progress.
Well, the community, I think, looking at revenue potential that includes hydro and recreation. That's where I think we even our ditch system that could be hydro. I know staff's done a good job looking at little micro systems and whatnot, technology for making hydro off of the fall of the ditch system. But the community involvement on where their water comes from and community access to their resource that they own, I think we can improve on that one.
And what would that look like?
What does that look like? Well, it looks like a memorial dog park at the abandoned, I'll just put it out there, you know, that's a small, discreet, abandoned treatment plant where the ditch pops up before it goes to SBI, right behind the tractor supply. And you know, I used to call it the Betty White Memorial, but it can just be a place that's a little dog park, because the Friends of Animal community are right there. I mean, to me, these are things that are important to be able to go and have peace, remember people that we loved, and give this to the community and provide dogs a place to be adopted. It just seems like such a easy project that doesn't involve FERC. It doesn't involve, you know, Department of Water Resources. You know, it's something that we can do on a weekend, I think.
Okay.
And it's visible, and we can have a ribbon cutting and they just show that we're committed to our community. It doesn't have to be phase one, phase two, you know, neighbors all mad. This is this little piece of ground that could lend itself to some real happiness. And I just can't see
Okay.
any downside to it. But why? Because when we need people, we have built a visible gesture of that we support the community.
All right. So in that line, is there anything else that, let's just say the board were amenable to, in the year 4 of the strategic plan, to engage in someone to quickly design a dog park for that? Would that be it? Would you have, and all of your benefits of that, does that check the box for you?
Yes, because it's attainable.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's achievable.
How about this staff member that you talk about?
Hmm?
The staff member, the watershed member.
Yes,
Is that relevant or is it a different thing altogether?
well, it's to me, in my world, they're essential. If you're gonna have a balanced team, an interdisciplinary team, then you need an environmental compliance officer that can build in mitigations in design, really, really early on in design. And I know in that last RFP that staff put out for the design build, I think you guys mentioned that you had environmental and an environmental compliance level already built in here. I can't remember the exact words of the RFP, but it just said we have the capacity to do that. And I just think that when you get outsiders, an outsider that a lot of other districts have hired that do the environmental compliance work, it takes the burden off of people that didn't go to school for that in the first place. But if you don't see the need for that, and you think everything is fine, then you're not gonna see the need for it. As a retired archaeologist, I can influence the project directly because I'm looking at the past and I can see what the past is. And I can give that to the tree planters and go, no, you know, conifer was not here. Here's the archaeological record that shows it was open oak. You know, I can contribute that. But I really honestly do think that if we're, especially with PG&E, especially with projects along the flume system, a ditch system, especially somebody that can integrate all your resources up front in terms of vegetation management projects. I just think that we need a journeyman staff level under you, Don, that can directly report to you and provide a balance here that can call other compliance people. And what are you doing with this situation? How are you protecting you know, they found this at Phoenix. How are we doing that? How are we managing that land trusting? I'm currently, it's on the engineers. I just don't think I don't think it belongs there. I think that we need an environmental and recreation staffing, journeyman level staff here to handle some of those things. And I think I did a little thing, Eric, I think what, 15%, I remember a few years ago, you said 15% of your time is being devoted to that. And I just feel that somebody that's your equal that could say, hey, this is this, we just did some fatal flaw stuff here. Here's what it is. Let's mitigate it. Before it goes to the board. I just feel like it would be a tremendous asset to TUD.
Okay, so
Thanks for letting me.
I'm gonna get you a
see
run.
that.
Hang on, I got you. So 2 things that Barbara thinks ought to be in the strategic plan. One is that TUD ought to make a more definitive work on to engage the communities. And one of the ways, her idea to do that is a dog park. And she lists a number of different goodwill things that will cause. She's also thinks that within the 5 years, we ought to get an environmental officer, especially if indeed these 2 big projects go. There's going to be a need for that. Now, staff's analysis might or might not be different, but staff needs to hear from the rest of you to think, yeah, that's worth studying and bring back. Because it'll get on the list for us to put into the strategic plan, but only if there's too much controversy around it and it's only Barbara's idea. If it's only Barbara's idea, it's not gonna get in there. But if you all kind of just nod your head and say, yeah, it's worth looking at, then it can go in there and we can bring a report back relative to the strategic plan. What, Glenn?
Yeah, I have a question. Director Bale, your point's well taken and I support the things you're saying. Help me to understand the difference between a or a water, a journey level watershed specialist and an environmental specialist. Are they one and the same?
Yeah, they're one and the same. They could come from a fish and wildlife background. I've seen job advertisements flown and who has been selected, and they'll have a fish and wildlife background. And for an example, the person that worked with the EN2 that did our ditch surveys that found sensitive species that added clout to those arguments. We have them here. It's not just the ramp up levels in the Stanislaus. We have our own. That was he was a wildlife biologist. And then they could manage this whole other aspect of grants also.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Glenn, the dog park, here's the one part that caught me is the dog park being a strategic move to support goodwill, to support rates necessary for PG&E. In fact, yeah, if indeed PG&E goes and indeed PG&E is going to cost some money and indeed you need to raise rates, then relationships will be important, whether or not that's one of the things you do to create goodwill. I don't know. That's another point I wanted to be clear. Okay, anybody else want to speak about Barbara's two things? Yes.
I think I brought it up the previous meeting. The dog park thing, we talked about. I understand what you're saying there regarding building relationships. I do. I see that's something that could pan out over time. And did you mention something about grants too? Did you have a grant piece in there? Did you? Yeah. And going back to what I brought up back then, which I still feel strongly about, we just went through our rate increase. I don't want to get accused or have any, I would be very sensitive to anybody who would be upset with TUD if they thought that we were taking new rate money that we just passed a rate increase for to build dog parks. So we got to keep that in mind up front, in my opinion, because that could turn those relationships against us and have the opposite effect if we're not careful. So if we were just to write a check and build a dog park, that would be a no-go for me. But if there are grants out there for it and we can do it, grant funded, I'd be all ears. I'd listen to that.
Yeah, wouldn't you want the dog parents to be in our court when we needed them? I mean,
Well, I want everybody in our
I
court.
think so. But you were at Aqua and Wilsey Bill, forget his last name. He's the GM for Yuba. There was some emphasis in them going up to the Yuba watershed. And why? Why are they going up there? Why? Because the ratepayer does benefit by water quality. And if there are grants for us to be with the county to collectively bring water quality to the front country for people to get engaged in and help with and understand the value of that. Any educational opportunity, which I do see this park as being, will be working for us then 24/7. And that's where the strategy of them going up into the water quality issues up in the forest, we're actually wanting to do that on Sullivan Creek, because this has a direct effect on our ratepayers, our water quality. So that's where I work it in my mind, which is it's all public education about water quality here and showing leadership where I don't see it as forthcoming in the county.
Well, you know, it's just, we got Dark Park here and water quality here. There's quite a gap between those two. So we'd have to be sure that if we were gonna do something like that, that we have a good plan.
And compliance officer.
Like interpretive panels. Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak on Barbara's things? Ron?
I have a lot of thoughts on Barbara's thing, but I'm really unhappy that you jumped from what I brought up about this to that, and we never got this taken care of.
Yeah, we're not done with this yet.
I know, but it's kind of got flip-flop now.
Well, that was first.
Well, I was talking about this
Alright.
when I brought it up.
All right.
So if I can go back to where I was at. This list is pretty extensive and my involvement with TUD allows me to recognize many, if not all of these projects. And as I said before, they're all important. So I would like to see staff and the GM prioritize these by how important they're, how close they are to failure and why we need to do these ASAP. And then on down the list to things that can be put off, because that allows then good planning for the whole organization. Everybody knows what needs to be done immediately. And we can really scope in on that. And I don't think that's for the board to get involved in really at all, because they're the experts. They have to live with it day in and day out, and they know what's going to affect the ratepayer right now and real soon. So, and then I'd be happy to get into all the new items.
Right. Okay, and this has emerged as the baseline.
Excuse me?
This has emerged as the baseline. I just need to make, those two things weren't on in the baseline, so I wanted to make sure those got integrated. And Don, relative to Barbara's things, is there some evidence of coverage at all for that here, or do we need to add that in and speak to it when we come back?
Well, Director Balin talked about, oh, it's on the first page, second to last bullet point, prepare and make urban greening grant application for Phoenix Lake land acquisition and depositing lake sediment, and partner with the county to construct the Apple Valley Manor Trail. So she spoke about that in the beginning, but she was saying aside from that, or different from that, she'd rather, not rather, but also focus on a couple of other things. And dog park is one of those. An environmental coordinator is a different, that's just different. The environmental coordinator and dog park, they don't make.
And they're not on.
No.
Okay,
What? No, they're not, the dog park's not on here.
right.
So here's what I feel like I know I've spoken to Director Balin and to other staff that, as you know, I'm not a dog owner, but that doesn't mean I don't like dogs. I like to travel a lot, so I like to get out here. But I have, at least I feel like I have to be able to tie everything I do to the existing strategic plan. Everything has to tie directly to there some way. It's difficult, I'll be honest with you, it's difficult for me to tie dog park, just as the title says, dog park, to our mission and our mission critical projects. I can tie the one I just mentioned, because while we have obviously, I'm not gonna go into the details of why we need to take care of Phoenix Lake and maintain it, but how we can incorporate, recreation, passive recreation in there as well, that maybe can be maintained by the county. See, I can tie those two things together really well. What also is in here, now that I think about it, probably is in here. I'm not sure how you organize them compared to the way I had them organized, but there is something along the lines of maybe working with one of our tribes to improve access to the ditches, right? Improve trails, thinning of the lands, improve trails for more passive recreation. So again, I can tie that right to our ditches, because our crews need to be there to walk the ditches, patrol the ditches, and so be it, if the public can do it too. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, Brent, but yeah.
All right. Yes, Glenn.
Just to follow up on what you were saying, Don. One reason for doing things like Barbara is suggesting is to build community goodwill. There's a certain capital, in addition to the dollars, there's a capital that we have of goodwill and public trust and support. And those are tough to hang a dollar sign on, but they are so vital, building goodwill. And this is one avenue to do that. And I'm sure there are many other avenues to do that, but that's kind of my perspective on it.
Yeah, well, I can totally understand building community goodwill, and whether we want to admit it or not, I feel like we build community goodwill on a regular basis around here. I would say in the last 2 years, there were probably close to 30 new fire hydrants where there weren't fire hydrants before. And we get lots and lots of compliments when we do those sorts of things. So, I mean, I can see, doing the work that we do and tying it to community goodwill, taking a tank that's in very poor conditions, that's close to homes that should they collapse will cause catastrophic situation, which is already has. When we prevent that from happening, to me, that's good. That's an example of community goodwill.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I hear you. I want to do all things, but with the limited resources we have, people, money, time, time against the clock. So if there's going to be a new focus for the district, a new revenue stream called recreation, the board's going to have to make that a priority, and then, let staff go back to figure out how we can incorporate recreation in our finances, because I don't think we can commingle water and sewer rates with recreational rates. So it'd have to self-fund itself somehow.
I just addressed, and I think it was a few years ago now at this point, where you and I just had a nice talk out there on the parking lot where it was and we were talking about it being an attractive nuisance, this little treatment plant, and that you were really agreeable to getting the crew out there and taking it down so it wouldn't be. Okay, so during that, and the Blue Zone was there, that was way before there was the grants that were coming up that would have supported that. And then because there was an acquisition piece, and because Eric and others had been looking at this piece of ground near Phoenix, that was your decision to go with that rather than, as the low hanging fruit for recreation. And I stood by that. I thought, I didn't agree with that, but I thought that this was doable. That was a longer shot. And I wanted something that we can show, and we apply for grants. This is what we value strategically, not just because it's nice to do. This is a strategic piece, an educational piece for our community. I don't want to take time, doing the lobbying for this, but I'll just end it by saying in the California Code of beneficial uses for water, wildlife and recreation is one of them. And I felt that this board has always stood for that.
Well, Barbara, if 3 of you say, let's let's doodle it in this specific plan. Doesn't mean we put it in there. That just means we think about how we could, you're not gonna get everything fully funded, nor is it gonna go away. I mean, it's probably somewhere in the middle, if grants come along, if in a seek and search and all that. I think there's a way for us to write up, but the thing of it is that if it's not here right now and we're gonna put it in, it just says it's a mention of it, that we're gonna memorialize that thought and maybe even try to find solutions. If that's okay for the board to put into the strategic plan as a draft and then discuss the language that staff and I come up with, then maybe we've got a certain amount of agreement here. It doesn't mean we're gonna do it, doesn't mean we're not gonna do it at this point in time. But you need 3 of your board members to speak to it, to get it into our, I think Glenn agreed.
Amenable.
Yeah.
Brett, could you reconcile that a little bit as far as we're working on a strategic plan, but we're looking at putting items in here that we might do or may not do? Why?
Because when you look at the whole, it might not make sense. If you're doing a comprehensive look, you might have things in there you hadn't thought of. Don's working on the 2020 strategic plan right now. He will be working on from the 2024 strategic plan once it gets adopted. Whether it's discussed between now and then is why. You put it in there now as a placeholder to have discussion on it when it comes up, for staff to do a little deeper dive on it and say, well, this is what it would take to even have options on something like that. And so we're just teeing up ideas for the strategic plan. Now, we're not putting them in there. We're just trying to.
Yeah, but wouldn't it fall under a strategic plan to have recreation as a component versus projects under recreation?
It could, if you as a board had decided you want recreation to be a component of Tuolumne Utilities District. It's in your charter language, you can do when you do take one of the lakes, you will do recreation. But you're not talking about that level of responsibility for recreation yet. You're just.
But I don't know. Okay, I don't want to get hung up on dog park. So I don't know if we have any assets that lend them to this or whatnot. And this is the first part of the conversation to be in. I can see different directions for how that project as a community outreach can benefit. I can also see how that project could be construed as, oh, look at what TUD is spending our ratepayer money on. So it can go either way. But to me, a strategic plan isn't for putting specific projects in. That's a CIP plan.
It just has to.
A strategic plan says, hey, part of our CIP planning will have a recreational component or a, capital improvement project, a resources management component. And your different items that, TUD's mission goes towards, Phoenix Lake restoration. That's a resources management improvement project. Recreation could be anything from a trail to the dog park to, new enhancements up at the Sierra Pines water treatment site or property up there. So
But
just
while you may not name it recreation right now, I think most of us can understand if there is strategic value in doing something like that in order to have the kind of a reputation in the community. And I know it's indirect to be able to support the kinds of things you do in the future. It's not a 1-for-1, that's for sure. You don't know for sure that will happen. But I don't know if there's a recreational component of your strategic plan yet. It's just part of your strategy. If there are some things that are easy to do, things that are, the scope is reasonable, things that don't cost money, much money or no money, then, you know, it might be worth the juice might be worth the squeeze if you, to get community goodwill. I can tell you, one of the biggest things we ever built in Tracy was a dog park. People love them. Did that give us a little uptick? Yeah, maybe. Maybe. That's all I know, but I'm not necessarily an advocate of dog parks for you. I don't have a dog in this fight, no pun intended. But one of your board members has tabled that and has for years as just a potential piece of this element of what you are eventually going to have to do once you get PG&A in terms of recreation.
What if we just left the language open that said prepare and make urban greening or a grant application for a potential educational recreational project yet to be determined? And then that frees
Or projects.
project.
But and that's already there. We don't need, we can go ahead with that and we'll come back with whatever might make some sense. All right, there was one more. Yes, sir.
Well, you had asked if I had any comments on
Yes, I'm
this.
sorry, yes.
So, guess I need to make a couple of points preface before I dive into this. I really like dogs. I had a dog that was my very best buddy, and he was such a good best buddy that when I lost him, I can't get another one. I am thoroughly and completely behind getting whatever kind of recreation component or whatever for TUD that makes sense. We have the opportunity with the ditches and other things. But I think this is all premature because right now TUD is water and wastewater. That's what our whole being is. And I think that this should be maybe brought up after we have acquired PG&E, because when we acquire PG&E, they have a recreation component in that. And it's a perfect time to add on anything else that we've might feel. Because at that point, we're now really into recreation, whether we like it or not. It's just part of the deal. Now I'm gonna go back to what President Kern said. I'm very sensitive to where TUD's staff time goes after this rate increase that we put in place. We put that rate increase in place. It was big. There's a lot of people suffering from it. I being one of them. I don't like making out that check every other month. It hurts. And I think that we got to be very, very careful about how we use staff's time and where the money goes from since that rate increase, because we'll get a real blowback on it. I know for sure. I mean, I've already hear all the time people complain about it, and
You're not even doing it.
we're not even talking about recreation yet.
They're really working on real stuff and they still blow back.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's a good example of there will always be blowback.
right. So then, getting to the dog park thing. As much as I think it might be a good idea, I just want to ask a couple questions. Number one is, how many ratepayers own dogs that would be able to take advantage of this dog park? Because remember, it's all of the ratepayers' money that's going into putting together this dog park. whether it's in grants or money straight out of ratepayer money. That's number one. So how many of those that have dogs have the ability to drive to and afford to drive to that dog park in order to take advantage of it? I think that might need to be thought of, because if you could just walk to it, that's one thing, but if you can only enjoy it if you drive to it, that's another thing. Number three, who's gonna take care of it? I mean, let's say you can overcome putting in the parking area, the coming in off the road, egress and so on. I mean, you're gonna have to put in some sort of legitimate road to get in and then a parking area. So you got some money there. Then you've got the, you're gonna have to have facilities there for folks. I mean, you know, like who's gonna take care of that on an ongoing basis and pay for it? And then the thing that really concerns me about this, and this is why anything along this line, we got to use we got to do a lot of thinking and head search on this. I can see that area is off the beaten path, so to speak. It's a great little location. It has water, and so on. What's stopping that from being the next homeless camp? Who's going to keep them out? Who's going to take care of all the debris and all that? How do we? Who's the policeman on this? How does that work? I just see a bunch of issues that need to really be thought out. And this is not something that I feel should go into the strategic plan right now without all of these things being really thought out, because we could get ourselves in a bind that we can't get out of. I don't want to go down there to be bringing hot vegan food because that's what they demand, because that's where they're at. I just see some real issues here.
Got it. Thank you.
Can I just say one thing? I appreciate it, Ron. I think that what I'm trying to get the board to do is to back off the fact that it's a dog park and understand the value of educational opportunities associated with these things that unite people with their water, that bring people up close and personal, like a ditch hike or like Phoenix Lake, the recreational component. It's important, I think, for the sustainability of TUD. It took me 3 years to get dog glove things around Sonora because people like George Segarini thought that the homeless would steal them. You don't, unless you've got facts to back that up, that's not always the case. There's only one lady that feeds the cats out there now. But what I'm interested in is the fact that I would like this board to value recreation. Sorry that I mentioned a dog park or a specific. I want to back off of that. I just think we need to be prepared for recreation. How else are we going to talk about it and get prepared if it's not, if the board doesn't say, yes, we need to value these things and there's grant money and let's get a list of potential areas that can unite people with their water so that we can be ready and show other people that we value this to get them money.
You know that I agree with all of that, and I've been pushing for it also for years, but I'm just saying it needs to be done in a very smart, laid out way.
You're okay. And I think, look, I don't think this is right now, it will be based on what's already on there. It will be a topic. It's not going to necessarily be and we're going to do a little more research on what the options are, which is what staff does, right? They say here are your options, here are your impacts of those options. But that doesn't mean it's going to make it to the strategic plan. It's going to say, okay, John, in 2 years, you're going to have a dog park up by the old plant. That doesn't mean that, but we're gonna have more discussion. I don't, there was enough. There's enough mention of it in that we're gonna mention it. It's already there. And not just the dog park, it's other things as well. And as you say, it might be a beach entry to a whole world of recreation for you guys in the future. Some of these things happen, right? The other thing though, we need to talk about that's not exactly on here. This is what I had just labeled internal communications, but look at the words, improved communications for improved board clarity. The implication there is that at times the board isn't clear about the direction of the staff report, or is there are they trying to get us to see a certain viewpoint? There was an intimated there and longer term implications of a staff report, as if let's write this up. If it gets approved, then we'll tell about the long-term implications later. And I don't want this to be difficult for everybody, and awkward, but it is. Big decisions, staff providing professional advice, not, so we want the comment was, we want staff providing professional advice, not lobbying for their choice. Okay, that's said. I'm glad that's finally said. You all should avoid that. If they have that feeling, you want to know they have that feeling so that you all can avoid that. I want you all to know that they heard that they know now that whether intentionally or not, they may have given that impression. It doesn't go anywhere in the strategic plan. It's not one of those things, it's a change in operations, it's a change in how we interact. It's not, and it's remember I said earlier, staff should not go back in the room after the board meeting and do a number of things. One thing they shouldn't do is say, did anybody pick up on that direction? Did we get direction in there? What did they really say? And this is I'm pointing at the chair now. The chair should never move from one item to the next without having absolute clarity for him to go forward and be efficient. 3250 doesn't matter. You can watch that too. Mr. Chair, wait a minute before we go on to agenda item number 5. I'm not completely clear. So can we just make sure we clarify that before I unleash these wonderful and expensive staff on that item? That's one thing you don't want the board, the staff to do the day after a board meeting is to wonder about what really happened last night. Secondly, is you don't want staff, you don't want your board feeling like they're into the corner on time or on direction. You want your job, and you know this, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but you want to set up decisions in a way that makes good professional sense. You have this option, or this option. Here are the tees, here are the balls. You 5 decide which one you want to hit. We like this one. But that doesn't mean it's going to have to be more juice behind it or more study behind it. We really did look at these other options, and to us, they just don't matter. They don't match up. But the board, you might like them for these reasons. And that's hard. It kind of raises the bar on staff reports, I think. It usually does. It's easy to settle into thinking you know your board and to settle in on staff reports and say, this will be enough. So, board members can be, and I'm putting myself on that side of the table now. Board members can be fickle animals. We'll wake up one morning and something whole brand new will care about it. We'll care about it. So you can't take us for granted. One thing we can take for granted with staff, your professional staff. And you guys are clinical. You guys are thorough. You guys are educated and know. And a lot of times we don't. And so that staff report becomes really important.
very, very important. Because where else am I gonna get as smart as I need to get to make this decision for all those people up there? Unless it's from you, and from some of them. And maybe I'll just my own word, but that's not good. Wikipedia is really not a good source. So. My main goal here today, our main goal here today was, we do kind of agree that this is a good set. There are some things coming along. They're all covered. All the things we covered before is in here. This will come back to you in a different form. It will come back to you, we'll take them out and organize them so they're all kind of under the same strategic value. One being water security. That's how this will move forward. Whereas I had that. It'll look up something like that. Thoughts and questions, confusions? Yes, Glenn.
Yeah, just a informational question. At any point in our process, will we be doing a formal strength, weaknesses, opportunities, threats analysis?
We can the next time we get together, and then just test it against what staff and I have prepared.
Okay,
To say, did we leave anything out here? It's always good to do another thorough kind of rake through the pile to see if we've got it.
because as Director Balin was mentioning, there's a great opportunity that she's seeing, and I'm beginning to see in some of the issues that are being brought up. And I know we have some threats. Like one thing that we talk about what keeps us up at night, and the main canal, a catastrophic failure of the main canal is something I see as a huge threat that we need to prioritize. But anyway, just that process is, I found in the past, very helpful in clarifying and prioritizing. Thanks.
Okay, make sure I put that in. Other thoughts?
One quick thought. Regarding trying to prioritize something, these are so ongoing, and in all of them, I think, are kept in the conscience of staff all the time. And when something comes up, like an opportunity to move on something, then staff moves on. It may not be the priority, but nobody's twiddling their thumbs because their number one priority isn't coming up, this year. So everybody's busy, and they're either feeding into this list indirectly, but it all is moving the glacier forward. So I kind of look at this as a glacier, and everybody's kind of like a ball bearing, and they put themselves underneath where they need to go, and they all push. And so it's difficult for me I don't organize my life as I'm busy, I'm doing my number one priority right now. It just seems that there's more of a gestalt here that staff operates on, and I'll always alert in opportunities on whichever one of these is going to move next. That's the way I look at it. That's why I think it's hard to
Usually this will
prioritize.
come back with a number of things that need to be done in the 1, 2, 3, 4 time.
Getting back to your question earlier, and you were kind of touching on it here too. I like that ranking system that we had.
The one that's up there.
Yep. The high priority, the intermediate, and the, where was it?
That one.
Yeah, mission critical.
Mission critical, high.
Personally, I do.
Yeah.
Speaking for myself.
We can certainly use that. There's nothing, if you say mission critical it's really, you've got some projects that are unlike many others that are, when we can jump into that, we're gonna jump into that. There are not many out there like that.
I'd just like to throw on there that, Director Boatwright made a good point. There are mile markers for the USBR and the PG&E. However, we're having this meeting with PG&E in July now. It was supposed to be this month, but it's now July. If they say, yep, we're ready, let's get right back to where we were a couple of years ago before we hit the pause button. Well, now that's a high priority.
It changes things.
Yeah, and so that road marker just went sailing past us now. We gotta get on to the next one, so. um,
Okay, so absent any, what do I want to call it? Just huge opportunities that come our way that would kind of change the way we think of things. We're gonna organize this and bring it back to you with more descriptors of each one of these. And some of these might drop off because some of these are tactical and they get done, you know, and so we'll relook at this. We'll put it into its, we'll organize it underneath the strategic objectives that we have. And then we will begin dabbling with dates on the far column. And that will give us an idea on how we have them prioritized. And there's always the few in your case where, unless of course this happens, then everything gets re-jumped. It's a re-baselining of a lot of things.
That goes back to the ranking system. That's an issue critical.
It does.
Yeah.
But few systems should be up there then.
Right.
There really aren't that many. There's a few that are up there that would just change everything. It changes your mission, not your mission, but even almost your mission, so. And there's some barbs in that as well, potentially. We don't know yet. All right, but I've gotten everything I need today, and I know it may have been a little edgy or sketchy here and there, but we really did cover everything that's come out. And I know where to put it. I know how to organize it. I'm gonna work with staff and we're gonna organize it and get it back to you. It'll probably take a month or two, so be patient with us. And who knows, by the time we get done with that, some might pop on the other side and we have to back off and wait and do something else, but we'll roll with this, okay? And I think you did a good job opening up and talking about some of the things that needed to be talked about. Anything else, from anybody? Now's the time. Rare space right here. I always wait till it's just over the awkward point. All right. then.
Thanks, Brian.
We'll call it.